No problem.
Okay, I think we're recording. Nice to meet you,
Hey,
Oliver.
it's a pleasure to meet you. Finally.
This, everybody, is my first Mexican official flat earther friend. So tell me,
Uh, yeah.
where are you at the moment? Monterrey?
I'm in Monterrey, yes. I'm in my
Monterrey.
house here in Monterrey.
Yes, beautiful. I want to go there. I have a friend from there, and he's told me all about it, the interesting things, how everybody's a Garza.
A Garza or a Gonzalez or a Perez. They're very
Uh-huh.
popular here. Yeah. They're all
His
over the place.
his grandfather has an interesting history there, and his uncle and father had something to do with building the universal something.
Oh, yeah, the Garzasada family.
See.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they built the Technological University here in Monterrey, and they were founding members of the brewery and I think also the concrete factory here. I'm not so sure about that, but the brewery for sure, for sure.
Very interesting. Yes. Well, I want to. He's been a fantastic friend in regards to open-mindedness with this stuff, but he isn't as far along yet. But every time I speak to him, he's talking to me like, "Oh, I'm going back and watching it, reading an old Arthur C. Clarke book from my childhood, and I'm seeing it from a totally different perspective since you made me think about satellites and shit like that." So it's very fun having a friend who's open-minded, but it's even more fun having a friend who's already found their way into this realization that the Earth is not a globe. So how did it come to you?
It came to me by a friend. I was then working in the state of Nebraska in the U.S., where I worked most of the time, and so I met this coworker one time. He actually approached me and said, like, the weirdest thing, because it's a construction site, and most of the people working in the construction site, unfortunately, I don't know, but it's just people, who just look for a job and they just want to, make a paycheck, and but they're not, they don't have any college education. They don't have. So anyway, I was just working there, and he was somehow able to discern that I had some sort of education, right? So he approached me and he was like, hey, are you educated? And I was like, what do you mean educated? He was like, yeah, like, did you go to college? And I was like, well, yeah, I did go to college. Anyway, that's how we met, and we just started talking, and we became real close friends. And he's a younger guy, younger than I am. And, we used to talk about so many subjects and so deep and profound information that we used to exchange. So, as time went by, we developed this, friendship, and one time he just came by my house and we were having a few beers, and he was actually talking about a concert that he had gone to, and it was a concert of a U.S. rapper named B.O.B. I'm sure you're familiar with him. I'm sure you've heard of him. And so he was telling me, I was like, hey, man, we got to go backstage with him, and I asked him a few questions about the flat Earth and all this, and I was like, what do you mean? He was like, yeah, the Earth is flat. You know that? And I was like, well, no, I don't know. I don't know. So he was like, yeah, the Earth is flat, man. You just got to check it out. And I was like, okay. Tell me more. Tell me more. And he just started telling me more, And even without looking at any evidence or any website or any YouTube videos, or just the stuff that we were talking about and all this things that he was telling me about, it just kind of made sense. Those little things that he said to me that evening made a lot more sense than everything I had learned in elementary school.
Isn't
Within
that,
an hour.
isn't
Within an
that,
hour.
yes. It took me a lot longer than that, but the longer I have in hindsight, I look back and I think, far out, it's everywhere. The first time I saw the sun from a high altitude balloon with a hotspot over the water, I was like, why haven't I seen this ever in my life? You know, I guess they don't show us that stuff in school because it's really obvious the sun's not 93 million miles away, and your own eyes prove it. I mean, I know that people say your eyes can be fooled and all of that, but that you have to add with 1,000 other anomalies and all the fakery and all the moon hoax and all of the ISS crap and all of the freemasonic minutes that expose them talking about their own fuckery of the human race by giving us all Darwin and the theory of evolution, and oh my God, it's just a tiring world. I mean, I think for the last 2 years, every day I've just been wow, 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 just having revelations wherever I am about why and how we've had so much taken. You know, we don't even know who we are, and we don't even know what we are or what we'd be like if we hadn't had so much stolen, so that we'd become effective slaves as such. And you know, now this eugenics agenda, like you say, Agenda 21, everything playing itself out in front of our eyes. Now, you've lived in the States for a little while, you told me, and what do you think about what's happening right now? Do you think that it's really coming true that people are just going to walk themselves into Walmart FEMA camps? And do you think it is the beginning of the end? So it's the beginning of the Hunger Games, sort of? I don't know. Is that dramatic?
Well, maybe not everyone, but it's certainly been happening. I mean, it happened during this flooding in Houston a few days ago. No, they were voluntarily just walking to places. And we saw it in the Boston Marathon, you know, how they reeled in martial law. People were fucking scared shitless, you know, and they didn't know how to react. This was this big experiment, and they got the results that they were looking for. They wanted to know how people would react to an absolute martial law scenario, and they got it now.
Well, the truth is, like, nobody shot back. Nobody had a neighborhood militia ready to take on a SWAT team of 8 guys at the front door. You're in your pajamas and there's a SWAT team at your front door saying, go to the holding center. What, you can't fight back. It doesn't matter how many guns you have in your house. You can't fight a SWAT team with a tank backing it up and a street full of SWAT teams going down and moving people. I know it sounds dramatic, but since 2008, I've been warning people of this time, and it's actually here now. And it's also interesting that we're discussing this right now because I'm thinking a lot about the Australian Port Arthur massacre, which happened in 1996. And it was a young guy, 27 years old. He'd been MK'd by psychiatrists since he was 10 years old. And when he was 27, he went crazy with a gun and he shot 55 people at a tourist park, 32 dead. And, you know, the world's best shooters came out and said he could never have done it. And so many other anomalies for anyone who cares to look into it. The guy didn't get a trial. He got 35 consecutive life sentences and 1,000 years without parole or something like that. It was just the most ridiculous sentencing of somebody. And they didn't even have DNA evidence of him at all at the crime scene, even though he sat down and had a meal and drank a can of drink before he took his gun out and shot 17 people in this cafe. So, you know, the guy was clearly ripped off. Nobody stands up for him. And I've been talking about that publicly since about 2008, 2009, and people always called me crazy. But the reason I have to talk about it is because if we don't stand up and say we know what's going on, they're going to do it again. And again, and again, and again, and again, and again. And I don't know if you're into calling out false flags, but everything from the Nice truck attack to the recent Barcelona thing, to the Swedish crashing into the mall, to the Melbourne...
Vegas.
The Vegas,
To the most
that's
recent
just the biggest,
Vegas.
best. Yeah, the
I mean,
biggest.
it's so ridiculous.
I know.
It's so obviously staged.
I can't tell if any real people were shot because I have even seen. I've seen footage of dead people.
Boston thing, you know, all those bodies and all that stuff.
What was that?
You can't really tell if they're real bodies. You know, where are those 50 bodies? I haven't seen them.
Yeah, where's those 500 people injured? Yeah.
Yeah, where are they?
Well, they'll roll them out. They'll roll them out
I'm pretty sure that they have not been checked in. You know?
Absolutely.
Where are they? And this man, you know, walking up there to the 32nd floor with all this fucking equipment. I mean, come on. You walk into a casino, you can't even make it to the fucking bathroom without having every fucking camera in the way on you.
I know.
And to tell us that he made it all the way up there with all this equipment, it's bullshit.
Even his brother just got interviewed for the second time and totally exposed himself and said, of course he did it alone. Of course he acted alone. It's the kind of thing he'd do. After saying for, you know, the whole other interview, nobody saw it coming. It's like the dude did not act alone to kill and I mean, it's so ridiculous from that angle, from that height. But anyway, we'll never know. We just, you know, it's the fucking wild goose chase. You could collect information all day long. I can look at a photo now of a false flag attack, and within about 10 seconds, I can call it. Is this real or is this a false flag? Because I've seen so many of them, and they, like you say, they all have the same highlights: missing shoes, water bottles, people with plastic tags around their neck.
Yeah.
And the people are a special kind of stupid too, like the actors in them. They're like, yeah, you can. I'm a failed actor. What's that?
It's unbelievable, you know, how people just they're fed this and they just take it. You know, it's unreal.
You're right. It is all legal. The government made a law legal that it's okay to make propaganda and for the whole media to report on something as a real event like Boston when it's so fake. They've definitely improved the color of the blood since Boston. This latest Vegas one, I think they used some real blood in Vegas, or there was some real dead people, because the blood is now a nice dark red, horrible color. But in Boston, oh God, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Jeff
and
Bowman.
It's just insane. But, you know, I think it's pretty obvious, you know, what they're trying to do. I mean, they've been trying to do it for over a decade, maybe more. I mean, they just want to completely demonize the Second Amendment. They want to disarm the public, and they just want to reel in this totalitarian regime, you know, absolute martial law, and start rounding up people like cattle and taking them into this camps. They're already there, and I guess, you know, they're practically already staffed as well, so they're just waiting for the people to be brought in.
But
it's insane.
We're enslaved in so many ways. Like, so many people in America might think that they're free-ish. They can pack up their car and go. But if the electricity is interrupted by all this crazy man-made weather or something, you know, a lot of people in America are on meds. Like 1 in 4 people are on, I shouldn't say it in case you are, but, you know, on antipsychotics and whatever. And anxiety meds. And so what is going to go on? These people are going to have to go to these Walmarts to get their meds. That's the only place they're going to be able to stay balanced or whatever. So I think you're really right, and I think we are seeing it. The thing is, for me, when I was 15 years ago, this retired policeman told me that he believed martial law was coming to the first world. And I was like, countries like the developed nations, Europe, America, England, Australia even. And I was like, oh, it's a shame you say that, because everything else he said was pretty interesting, but that's just kooky as. And this was just a little bit before 9/11 or just after. But he told me what a false flag is, and actually it might have been just after, because it was like 9/11, and I could see through 9/11 when they found the passport the very next day.
Yeah, that miraculous passport, huh?
But I couldn't see tanks on the street. I couldn't see soldiers in the streets of America or Australia lining up people, telling them to go to vaccination or microchip centres. That was too much back then in 2001. And then in 2013, when I'm watching the Boston Marathon and I see 20 hectares of Boston shut down under martial law, looking for a 19-year-old with his mother's crock pot, I thought, this is happening. This is on. This is on, man. And Americans need to get off the plantation, because one day you won't have a choice. I really believe that maybe you've got a passport, maybe you have money in the bank, but if they don't want you to go, you're not going to be able to go one day.
No. The U.S. will become it's going to become sort of like Gaza. It's one big prison. The shit hits the fan, you won't be able to go anywhere. I mean, they'll close up every port, every airport, every land border. You're stuck, and this thing's about to happen. I mean, we don't know, but we can sense that it's just about to happen. I mean, they're bringing it in. They're ready. I mean, I don't know what exactly they're waiting for. It's pretty obvious that all these things that happening, it's nothing but just, testing the ground, realizing and finding out how the people will react to this, and they're ready to bring this huge thing in, and, you can just sense that it's about to happen. I mean, this Boston thing, it was so obvious, and it was so sad, to see this taking place in this so-called free country. Every constitutional right and civil liberty just completely violated and stepped on. You weren't worth anything. The dog was more free than you were during the Boston Marathon thing. And all for what? For this little, 19-year-old kid? Really? You need to bring in the whole armed forces to search for this kid? It was...
So I want to know, how much of this do you think is being released upon us so that some of us revolt, so that some of us rebel, so that some of us revolutionize and get out our guns and go crazy in the streets so that they've got more of an excuse to crack down harder? I think that is part of their plan. I think even in the Albert Pike letter in 1873 to the head of the mafia, they talk about starting this revolution between the anarchists and the nihilists. And sometimes I wonder if we're being divided by those of us who are awake and looking at events and seeing through the agenda, and those of us who are just choosing to stay bootlickers to the system, because the two sides, they're not opposed. Of course, every single day we mix with each other. We have each other in our families and friends. They're not opposed at all, but ideologically they are opposed. So I see a lot of stuff like the Sandy Hook release of Robbie Parker laughing when his child had just been killed, and he did a press conference. I think that stuff's deliberately released. I'm wondering, is the flat earth being deliberately released or controlled released by all these shills? I don't know, because Eric just chose to spit it at this time, or it's very interesting, because flat Earth is another thing that some people are just never going to get onto, until the masses have.
It is the ultimate lie. Some of the stuff. We know that they deliberately show some of that stuff, and that they deliberately want people to realize part of the agenda, although a very small part compared to the big master plan. But some of the stuff is it's hard to say. It's hard to tell how much of it is deliberately put out there so that people know, and how much of it is hidden. But even the stuff that's hidden, it gets discovered by people who are, with their eyes open and looking for the things. It's hard to say how much of it is deliberately put out there. I don't know. But, the the flat Earth, I mean, is definitely the ultimate lie, you know, and just like Eric Dubay said, you know, it is such a big lie, but it's the most easily provable, you know, just by using your senses and your faculties and going out there and do a little experiment, you know. So,
but it's not so easy. A person has to become an authority unto themselves before they can even look. So that's why you're on the edge of that curve, that bell curve. We found the curvature and you're riding it.
Yeah.
So tell me some of your favorite flat Earth teachers or video makers or I don't know, people who've influenced you that I might know or need to know about.
Well, of course, you know, Eric Dubay, 200 Reasons Why the Earth's Not a Spinning Ball. I got to tell you, the first one that I really did see, it was an interview by Macedonian TV with David Murphy.
Yeah.
David Murphy, yes. That was the one, because there's a YouTube video that lasts just a little less than an hour.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yes. I said, you know what, I'm going to give this a chance. I'm going to waste an hour of my time looking at this video. It just blew my mind. I was like, holy shit. You know, I'm just going to watch Under the Dome, and I'm just going to watch all this other stuff. And it just took off. You know, it just took off. Yeah.
But there is a lot of information to cover, isn't there? There's a lot of angles to look at, and there's a lot of things to debunk yourself. You have to look at, I mean, I could list 20 if I looked at some notes, but I could probably list 5 or 10 just from memory. And at first, I think the biggest block for a lot of people is they don't think they're smart enough to be able to discern. That was my problem. I thought, well, I'm not smart enough really to be able to do the maths. And then somebody told me it's 8 inches per mile squared. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do the maths, you know. But I was like, obviously I can't do the great mathematical equations of Newton and Einstein and these mathematicians. So I felt like I don't really have a right to get in this argument. And then I started to look at so many videos of the NASA fakery, the curvature, people with their cameras at ground level and at sea level, I mean. And I was just taking it in and taking it in. It took me 6 months to say it publicly, really, with any gusto. Yeah, fuck. I think the dumber people take longer. Like,
it took me a week. It took me a week.
Yeah, I think smarter people know it in hours and talk about it within a week. And I think the slower people, honestly, like, I'm an average girl, and it took me like 2 weeks to even get past my own inner voice going, that's stupid, that's dumb, that's stupid. Why wouldn't the Earth be a ball? The sun's a ball, the moon's a ball. You know, I had so much crap coming at me from my own head. And I would walk along and I'd say, the horizon looks flat, but just this section looks flat. If I stand over there, that section looks flat and that section looks flat. You know, so it took me so long, and so I'm happy to watch people who take it quickly. So tell me some others. I love Eric's work too, and I love his art, his crazy ones, his music, and I love his comedy. I think he's a really interesting human being to have brought it to everybody's attention with the help of everybody else, and including in that I include all the shills, because I learned some stuff off all the shills. But doesn't mean they're not shills, and doesn't mean you don't get sour on them eventually.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and that's one of the things that's being discussed at the moment about VOB, whether he's a shill or not. Anyway, let's not get into that, but Eric's work definitely, you know, very inspiring. The thing about Eric is that he just breaks it down so well that even the most, I don't know, uneducated, or the person that thinks that he's just incapable of realizing, no, even the simplest of minds can't realize the stuff that's being proven here because of the way that he explains things. So, yeah, definitely Eric Dubay, Mark Sargent, of course, and there's a couple of presentations that I saw. Darren Nesbitt, I saw his, and, you know, Darren Nesbitt, and there was this other guy, I don't remember,
I think it's Rob Skiba, I think that's his name. And of course, they get very involved with the scriptures. But the scriptures, they really do describe the earth the way that, the current experiments have been proving it to be. And it really does describe it the way the earth appears to be.
Yes.
And yes, so we have to take that into account. Regardless of their religious beliefs or whatever. I mean, the Bible really does describe this spot on. Like they nailed it. And so yeah, definitely Eric DeBay, Mark Sargent.
I just got to stop you there. Like saying Mark Sargent, it's like having someone wee in my ear and melt my brain. Because I'm really anti Mark Sargent. I think he's the worst shill. I think he made some mildly interesting proofs, a few, and I think with that he mixed so much disinformation. He broke me almost instantly to the fact that he's an agent a long time ago. But and I'm not sure about the others who mix within those circles. I think some of them are unwitting or witting, what do they call us? Idiots. Unwitting idiots. Yeah. Useless idiots. I think a lot of them are that, but I think Mark Sargent is definitely a Freemason sent from the Flat Earth Society kind of group of people to fuck everything up and just be generally unattractive. But I just have to say that. Like, you go ahead and keep telling me more.
Yeah, like, I don't know. See, I was just mentioning about the BOB also being a shield. I don't know. Basically,
you need to watch an Eric video called Mark Sargent, I've Got a Clue, or something like that. Flat Earth Shill Clues, or something like that. It's very funny. Oh. He really breaks down Mark spewing out disinformation, and it's important that we see that, because when we are learning something, I mean, I've learned everything I know from agents who spill out truth with disinformation. From David Icke to Nassim Haramein to Ken O'Keefe to, Math Powerland, made me laugh at the start with picture or painting. So I've learned something from all of them, but at the same time, as we move along and we wake up, we've really got to call out these people who are agents paid to shit in the punch bowl, as they say.
Yeah, it's just like Alex Jones, and David. And David Icke. I mean, David Icke was one of, this person that presented me the information about Flat Earth, we used to have conversations about David Icke's subjects and books. And David Icke, he's one of the, when I first woke up, it was really, I think, me, along with many other people, were kind of, how do you say, we were kind of shook up with the Zeitgeist movie. That did it for me.
That woke me up a lot.
Yeah, when I saw Zeitgeist, Edges, that was it. That was the movie that kind of, see, all throughout my life, I had observed and experienced stuff that I always felt were wrong with the world. But I did nothing about it. I just kept living on, just like any other human beings, living all our lives, not worrying about whatever. And all this stuff was somehow accumulating inside my mind and my heart. And then ultimately, when I saw Zeitgeist, it was like a spark. It was the spark that fueled this inner reservoir of gasoline inside my mind, And
Zeitgeist was wonderful. I think it was 2008 it came out, and I went to a wedding in a faraway place, and my friend's boyfriend late one night put a computer in front of me and put Zeitgeist into YouTube, part 1. And I just sat there and went, wow, and watched the whole thing that night. And then I went back to Sydney where I was living and happened to meet a guy who had a health food store where he sold DVDs of great films that were suppressed, or from alternate media, from everything from the AIDS hoax to Zeitgeist to the Gender 21 to exposing chemtrails to exposing the Federal Reserve, G. Edward Griffin, just everything. And I got an education after that, but Zeitgeist cracked me open, you know. And I wasn't even raised with religion.
Same here.
Were you raised with religion?
Same here. It did the same thing. It cracked me open as well.
Were you raised with religion living in Mexico?
I'm sorry, I kind of lost you there.
Were you raised with religion in the home?
Well, see, my parents, they were Catholic, but just like the majority of the people in Mexico, they're Catholic and they claim to be Catholic, but they don't never really go to church, or they don't have. They're just Catholic because they were born Catholic, But
that's funny
anyway,
because that's how people start to break away. Like in Australia in the 70s, a few people I knew went to church, but I went to public school. But most people I know never stepped foot inside a church. Some people, like 1 in 100 or 1 in 20, would go to church Christmas or Easter. But everybody else wouldn't. And I can see that that's how people start to slowly tear themselves away from what is brainwashing, what is familial conditioning. So that's your family's way of saying sorry, but we don't quite believe anymore that, so-and-so made water from wine and someone ate an apple and a snake came,
Yeah. When I was taken to church when I was very young, when I was like 7 years old, it was like around 7 the last time that I went to church. I didn't go to church. I was taken to church. So, I remember this priest up there saying a whole lot of nothing that, the guy never actually even opened the Bible or mentioned anything from the Bible. It was all just made up, And I remember all those days that I used to go to church, and one day when we were walking back from church, because I remember all this lectures that the priest used to give us in church, and I remember seeing all this idols and images everywhere, that we were told that they were saints and we were supposed to somehow be devoted to, and it just didn't click in with me, never, ever. So one time I was walking back home after church, and I saw this beautiful, beautiful tree, and this tree has the most beautiful flowers you can imagine. It's called a jacaranda. Now that you're here in Mexico, you might be able to know what kind of tree I'm talking about.
Beautiful.
Beautiful flowers. So I saw this floor on the ground. I saw the ground just filled with this beautiful flowers. And you know what I said? I said, this is God. This. Not what they're telling me inside of that place, This is God, this beauty, this. So from that moment on, I said, they're a fraud. They're a complete waste of time. I don't ever want to know anything about those guys anymore. So, eventually I grew up. My parents got divorced. That's how I ended up moving to the U.S. I did not go to the U.S. Like I wasn't going to church. I was taken to church. I was taken to the U.S. as well. So my parents got divorced, and then we moved to the U.S., to Texas, South Texas. And when I say South Texas, I really do mean South Texas, not San Antonio, like most people think it's South Texas. No, South Texas, like really close to the Mexican border. So we moved there, and my mother just, God bless her. She's just.
What, like you could still pass a casserole through the fence to family in Mexico, or what?
What do you mean? I'm sorry.
Like you could pass food through the border from America to Mexico?
Oh, no. It was, we lived in a town called McAllen, Texas, and it's about 30 minutes away from the border, 30 minutes inward. So, no, not literally, not right ever, but close to it. So anyway, we moved there, and that's how we sort of just drifted away from religion and started going to school. And I went to high school. I graduated. I went to the University of Texas. I graduated. Now I regret it.
What did you study?
Say again?
What did you study?
I studied fine arts.
Beautiful.
I studied fine arts. I graduated, and I should have taken archaeology, really, because that's really my thing. Now I regret it, but I've been in the archaeology world and the environment for so long, that I'm practically an archaeologist without a title. You know what I mean?
And what makes you an archaeologist? What do you do?
Well, I've done just about everything. I mean, I've participated. I've taken part in discovering Mayan sites that are practically lost in the jungle, and nobody even knows that they're there, that they exist. So I've taken part in discovering the sites, documenting them, mapping the whole site, counting the number of structures in the site, doing topographic exams, doing rebuilding. It's called. You have to cut all the vegetation off. I don't know the exact terms in English, but it's you practically clean the place up, and then you rebuild the structures. You restore the structures, and then you provide maintenance to them.
And where is the latest one you've been on, or the best one you've been on?
The best one I've been in over 120 archaeological sites, but most of them I specialize in the Mayan civilization. So that's the reason why I'm always down there in Southeast Mexico, because of the Mayans. So there's so many, Alyssa. I mean, I wish I could tell you about some places. I wish I could tell you about some places. There's this place. It's so majestic, so monumental. It's in Campeche, in the state of Campeche, southwest of Calakmul, and it's so majestic. It makes Chichen Itza and Palenque look like like small sites, because there's so.
You mean Uxmal? Have you seen Uxmal? Of course.
Of course.
That's one of my favorites. I love that place.
No, you have to come to some places that
I'm going to come. When you're down here, please. I would love that.
Oh.
That would be amazing.
You will come. I am very well connected to the archaeology world in Mexico by INA, Instituto Nacional de Antropología y Historia. So I'm very well connected because I know some of the most prominent archaeologists in the Mayan region. I won't give any names right now, but anytime you wish to come and join us in our expeditions, you are more than welcome to.
That would be incredible. I would absolutely. That would be the most amazing experience. Thank you. I'm going to take you up. Now, is there fuckery in the official history versus the Mayan history? What's going on there?
There is, fuckery for example, the Popol Vuh, which is, one of the most commonly spoken about books. It's clearly influenced by Christianism, and although you cannot prove that it is influenced by Christianism, I mean, just by reading it and analyzing it, you can tell. I mean, it was commissioned by Catholic priests.
Oh, really?
They hired.
Interesting.
Yeah, they hired.
Interesting. I could feel the influence, but I never had researched the commissioning of it by the Catholic priest. That is fantastic knowledge. Of course it was. Of course it was, because they've got everyone's mind. They didn't let anybody retain their own pure histories and knowledge. Very few people. So,
Exactly.
in the same way that like Zawi Hawass rules over Egyptian archaeology, are there like assholes in the Mexican archaeological world that you have to violently disagree with and that you're having ego battles with? Are there?
Yes, let me tell you. I will give you just one experience that I lived. My friend and I, we discovered a couple of Mayan sites lost in the jungle. They were not reported. The Mexican government did not even know they existed at that time. And so they were the archaeologists in charge of the exploration. And see, let me try to very briefly explain to you what was happening. My friend was hired by Comisión Federal de Electricidad, which is the country's only electricity provider. And so they were hired because there are laws in the Mexican government that you cannot just build whatever the hell you want without examining where you're going to build it first. So there have to be studies of the environmental, the cultural impact of a project before it can be authorized. So my friend's job is to go in there to analyze and to study the area in which this project is going to be developed before it can be approved. And if there is archaeological remains in a certain area, it's an automatic no. You cannot build here. You have to go around. So he was hired to do this job. Later on, he was fired because he did his job so well. He was fired because he did the job that he was hired to do.
Yes.
Anyway, so, corruption everywhere. Corruption in every level of authorities in Mexico. I mean, that's a whole different ballgame. But anyway, so I'm going to try to make the story short. So we got to those places, and this big names in the archaeology world in Mexico, they were summoned here to check the place out because they reported it. And people from, the state of Yucatan, from Mérida, and from Mexico City, they went down there, and I was there. We found the place. Anyway, so when people got there, one of the archaeologists in charge of doing the reporting and, the documenting and everything of the site, I was listening to him, and he was telling this bigger archaeologist who came from Mexico City to observe the site. He works for the other archaeologist. He works for the electricity company as well. So he's getting paychecks from the electricity company. So what he was trying to say is, you know what? We can just pretty much knock these structures down. We can just tear the shit out of them, build our electricity towers here, and nothing's going to happen. It won't be a loss. It's just nothing,
Nobody will notice. There's thousands of these, yeah.
Exactly. There's no heritage or any laws here. It's like, and I couldn't believe my ears. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
This guy is supposed to protect, the archaeological sites rather than to just agree to destroy it for a paycheck, know?
The electrical people are ultimately such enemies to humanity and have been forever since Tesla found free electricity. They've just kept it on the lowdown, and of course they're knocking down any kind of ancient history. I just get so suspect when I go to these places and there's like a massive temple and there's no doorway. It's like, why would people move so many stones to make such an incredible structure in the middle of a jungle that might get flooded 2 months a year? Why would these people create these structures that you can only climb on the outside of? I know that some of them have inside sections that you can visit, but the majority you can't. They don't even have the doors anymore. They've like even plastered over the doors. Is that wrong, or am I just missing something?
No, they have done that, and it's a shame. But sometimes they do it to prevent the structure to collapse. But there are a lot, at least the Mayans build, I mean, right now there are over 450 registered sites, plus the ones that are still being discovered on a daily basis in the jungle. So this place is, the temple that I was talking to you about, that this guy wanted to destroy just to build those fucking electrical towers, they were 45 meters high. I mean, these were massive temples. These were massive structures. And this guy was just there saying, oh, it's okay if we fucking destroy them. It was like, I was like, what the fuck is wrong,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Plus they choose which ones to uncover and which ones to keep covered. Like Chichen Itza, you can look at a certain amount, but then you're not allowed over there, and you're not allowed over there, and there's a whole city of more over there, and you're not allowed over there. And I understand they don't want people vandalizing everything, but it's a weird thing. It feels like none of us are allowed to just go to these places and contemplate. We're not allowed to go in at night and just meditate. It's like it's also controlled by the people who control everything. It makes me just so depressed.
Yeah, but there are so many other sites, Alisa, like the ones that I go to.
Yeah, where there's no guards and no money box.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's no guards. There's no nothing. It's just you, the jungle, and the temple, all by yourself.
That's what's so amazing to me about Mexico is these ancient civilizations from, 1 to 3,000, I don't know, thousands of years old, all over the place, often still covered up. Like a little kid found a Mayan civilization pyramids a few years ago on Google.
That was a hoax.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was a big hoax.
Oh,
this little kid didn't find shit. This little kid found nothing. This little kid found a little, you know what it was? You know what it ended up being?
I don't know, because he wasn't allowed to go there.
It was a wheat plantation. It ended up being a wheat plantation.
Really?
This kid sort of discovered, this Canadian kid, using just mathematics, claimed to have discovered this ancient lost city of the Mayans.
From the Orion.
It's down there in Malaysia, and then people actually went to the place. It was a fucking wheat plantation.
Oh, I'm so gullible. No wonder they didn't let him go there, because I remember him saying when he grows up he's going to go there, and I'm like, take the kid now, for God's sake.
No, it's okay. It's just like the Mark Sargent because I listen to the stuff, but I never actually think that any of the guys presenting stuff is an eminence or no. I criticize every single little thing I see and hear.
Me
and
too.
Yeah,
we have to.
I take the good stuff. I take the good stuff, the true stuff. I take that.
Oh,
Whatever
me too,
I don't
but
feel is quite true, I just put it aside.
I'm gullible, and I still fall for shit every single day. So it's good to be aware of that. But at the same time, like, you get the life perspective that you get from your own experience, and you attract life experiences that fit with your past picture and all of that. So, I'm just glad that there's someone else in Monterrey making people aware of this in Mexico, because I think Mexicans in general, a lot of people I speak to, they don't believe the moon landing. They believe that's total American Hollywood crap. I don't even think at the time of the moon landing most Mexicans would have believed it. Not that they all sat around TVs like everyone in America did in 1969. But, I've heard that a lot of people in South America and Brazil, they were all just going, what a load of bullshit, even at the time. So I think it's only us, like people like really with stars in our eyes, that believed it for any amount of time. But it took me 35 years to wake up to, so I always let people have their own time. Because the thing about this is you can't imprint it on anyone. You can offer them places or ideas that you got and where you got your ideas and how you got your ideas, and you can show them experiments or whatever, but then they have to do their own reading, watching experiments, right?
Yep. And I'm planning a few up here. I haven't done them. You know what? I think I just so regret not being. There was an expression you wrote the other day that made me laugh. You said you were like tech retard. No, I'm the ultimate tech retard. I cannot make any videos. I wish I could make videos because I was talking about this with my friend from Honduras, and I was telling her, it's like, there is an urgent need for material about the flat Earth in Spanish.
Yes.
There aren't many around.
Yes, I've watched all of them. Yeah.
There's just a few, and the ones that are in Spanish are from people from Spain, and it's okay. It doesn't matter, but it's just very little material out there.
Yeah.
You know?
And also with your history of archaeology, you can give a studied and professional, perception for a lot of people, so that it's not just coming from a total unstudied person. Not that you have to study anything in a university to know anything, because you can learn anything from anywhere. Yeah, you don't need credentials.
Exactly. You know
but
what?
we definitely need you to make videos and do anything you can. I wish I was doing more. I mean, that's why I'm at least doing this with you, because this is one of the only things I sort of feel I can do, is just rap to people about how they became so awake.
It's a process. It's a process, of course. And what you're saying about my knowledge about archaeology and history in Mexico, yes, it could prove to be very useful. But the thing is that I don't know how to make any videos. I was talking. So what I do, Alyssa, is I just talk to people. Everywhere I go to, everywhere I travel
film that
to,
shit. It would be wonderful, because you're really exciting to watch and really interesting to speak to. Plus, you can speak it in Spanish to anybody that speaks Spanish, and in English, and then you can put subtitles on them so they're both available to millions more people, you know? Like any video in 2 languages is just going to visit so much more of the world. So, yeah, we should get on to making more and translating more.
Yeah. I feel that the need to do that is so urgent, you know.
So what?
I was talking to, yeah.
No, you go.
No, I was just going to mention, I have a friend who lives down there in Playa del Carmen. I was actually, remember I told you about that? Oh man, I wish I would have contacted you before, because I was there in Playa del Carmen in Tulum just a few weeks ago. So we could have just hung out and have a few drinks and talk about all these things that we're talking about today.
Well, when you come back, we will, for sure. That would be great.
Yes, hopefully, yeah. And he was in the Mexican Marines, you know, in La Marina Mexicana, and he was there for many years. And I was telling him about the flat Earth, you know, because I stayed a few days over at his place, and he was skeptical. But I was telling him, you know, the things that I approached him with, like, you know what, you were in the Marines, you were out there at sea all the time. You know what I'm talking about, you know. You think all these ancient civilizations, you know, Sumerians, Chaldeans, you know, you think they were stupid? You know, they were fucking expert mariners, you know. They knew what the fuck they were doing, and they they knew. They didn't believe the Earth was flat. They knew the Earth was flat. And I was telling them, it's like, come on.
They were
Do you
expert
really?
physicists. They were expert alchemists. They were
Yeah.
expert astronomers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, they weren't stupid. They were a lot smarter than we are. We've been dumbed down so bad, you know? And these people, they knew what they lived. They knew what they experienced. They were not fooled, you know? And I kind of got them started, you know? I kind of got them thinking that, you know, this shit might be true. Anyway, like I said, I'm just planting the seed. I'm just planting the seed everywhere, but I sure would love to do more.
Oliver, you've got to get your camera out, your video phone camera. Just get it in snippets, 1 minute, 2 minute. Have you been watching Einar Kusk's documentary Finding the Curve?
I'm sorry, listen, I kind of lost you there. Could you please say again?
Yeah. Have you been watching Einar Kusk's documentary called Finding the Curve? It's in 9 parts now.
No, I've not seen it.
I'll send you a link to it. It's very interesting. It's very good documentary. But the best thing about it is it shows you how the crappest video phone or crap video camera footage of these conversations is so fascinating that it doesn't matter if you're just filming someone's side of their arm and their parka. You don't even need to get their head in shot for it to be a fascinating documentary. And this guy is just like camera bombing everywhere he goes. He went to the observatory in LA and just discussed it with the guy at the Foucault's pendulum there, and just made the guy look like an idiot. And all of his really smart friends who are insisting it's a globe, he so beautifully just films them honestly, and they hang themselves. They make you realize how stupid you look when you're arguing for the globe. Because these people act like they're the experts, and really all they're doing is passing on to you religious propaganda, religious dogma that they've accepted. And you are the one sitting there who's done experiments, who's debunked all of these things. And it's just a great documentary, so I'm going to send you that so you watch it. But, yeah.
Please do, yeah.
Yeah, you need to get your video camera out because you're an intelligent guy. You can film it, like whether you're speaking to people in Spanish. That'd be great for me. I'd watch that all day and improve my Spanish. And also, Mexican people need to be aware of what's coming when America wakes up, because Americans are going to wake up. We don't know how fast. We don't know if there's just going to be 5% of the population that always knows the Earth's flat and the rest stay in ignorance, or if that 5% is going to exponentially grow into something where it becomes 50%, you know, and people are going to pull out of government. People are going to go into barter. People are going to do cryptocurrency. People are going to help each other to get away from government once they all wake up to this massive monumental lie. Universities will have no further standing. Intellectual hierarchies no longer exist. Professors all take equal standing with kids, you know, because absolutely nobody noticed this. This is the biggest lie, and absolutely nobody noticed.
That is true, and that's why I loved your words so much. Remember that the reason how I found you was because of this video where you just totally crushed Neil deGrasse Tyson, you know. And that's how I knew about you. That's how I came to you.
That's so funny because nobody likes that video. I think it's got like 300 views, and nobody likes it when a woman swears. I think the first line is me going, "You fucking cunting something," and it's like, no. Why does no one watch your video, Alyssa? Because you're unbearable. But you know what? I don't want anyone to watch my videos. I don't want to be presenting it like a newsreader for more hits. I want to be like, holy fucking shit, you lying mother piece fucking shit, asshole, cunt. I'm sick of it, you know. I just want to let it all out because I'm so insanely obtusely angry with all these men that haven't stood up, and that's why I love you for standing up and also for honoring me as I am. That's really cool. And for listening to me for 10 minutes.
Lisa, I'm not bullshitting. I mean, you have been inspiring to me. When I saw that video, I mean, I was just fucking, I was laughing my ass off at the same time. I was realizing that all the stuff that you were so brilliantly mentioning, and so, you know, it was so eloquent and so articulate, and you were just crushing the shit out of this pseudo-science, you know. And one of the things that I really love is, at the beginning of the video, you mentioned that I think people are becoming their own authorities, and they're using their faculties and their senses to conduct their own scientific experiments, and that's what we're doing, Elisa. People here in Mexico, as you said, they don't get fooled that easily. In a way, I think that the reason why the U.S. citizens believe that NASA is this big shit, big shot, you know, agency, it's because they've been brainwashing to believing that the U.S. is the best at everything. And that's why they kind of just automatically believe this shit. People from the rest of the world, there's a joke, Elisa. People from the rest of the world, they don't buy this shit. Anyway, there's a joke. I'm gonna try to tell this joke. Maybe you've heard it before right away, but it's a joke, but it reflects reality. It says it's a survey that the UN conducted. Have you heard this joke? Okay. The UN, the United Nations, they conducted this survey, and the survey consisted of only one question. And the question said, please give your honest opinion about what you think about the scarcity of food in the rest of the world. That's it. I'm going to repeat. Please give your honest opinion about what you think about the scarcity of food in the rest of the world. Anyway, they conducted the survey, they collected all the results, and they ended up not being able to reach any fucking conclusion. And they were like, what the fuck happened? How can we not reach any conclusions? Okay, so let's find out what happened. And they found out what happened. It turns out that the Europeans did not know what scarcity meant. The Africans didn't know what food was. The Cubans didn't know what to give an opinion was. The people of the U.S. didn't know what the rest of the world was. And in the Mexican Congress, they're still debating what the word honestly means.
That's brilliant. That's a great joke. And it's so based in truth. You're absolutely right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's what you're saying about Mexican people not buying all this moon landing hoax. It's a given. I mean, they don't. People here in Mexico, Lisa, I think you wanted to know what the perspective is, what the mindset of the Mexican people is regarding world issues. And the thing is that people are waking up in mass numbers everywhere, all around the world. However, I believe that the Mexican people are waking up, but just to a certain level. They are still very much believing in this left-right paradigm.
Yeah.
And believe they are very much sucked into it. They are not able to see beyond that. They're stuck in that. So, I mean, they've been doing it for over 100 years. Our country's being fucked, in every way you can think of. I mean, so they're waking up to the social, political, and economic issues of the country. However, they're not able to realize that all this is caused by the fucking Bank of International Settlements and the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Don't realize this shit. They think it's really their so-called leaders the ones causing all this tragedy and all this inequality and all this poverty and misery and suffering. And they're not able to see that, unfortunately. I think I've been privileged because I've been able to live here and in the U.S., so I know not only about Mexico, but I know about the U.S. and I know about the rest of the world. People here are so enslaved, so sucked into poverty that they're not able to meet, that they're not able to do anything because they're just, waiting for that little, very poor paycheck that they get at the end of the week just to be able to get food, to their families, and it's sad, but they have not woken up, Alyssa, and
it's almost like they're just starting to get really into the political process of left, right, red, blue, whatever. Like I notice we have on the island around political voting times, we have, groups of people cruising around with their balloons and their T-shirts saying vote for this one or that one, and I would just cruise down the street, Anarchia, Anarchia.
Yeah.
Because and a lot of them are really cool, and they kind of smile and kind of look at me free on my bike with no shoes and no frickin' T-shirt to represent some group, and I think they sort of look at that and go, wow, that's interesting, Anarchy is the only way.
Yeah. It is the only way. There is no other way.
Well, I have a lot of hope for Mexico, but I also have, it's going to be a very interesting time if America closes in on the people as much as I think it could attempt to. We could see 100 million Americans going out of the country over the borders, one way or the other. And why wouldn't they cross over to Mexico or Canada? But Canada's just as bad. Canada's worse. Canada's even closer to the crown, just like Australia. They do more fascist experiments on Australians and Canadians than they do on Americans, I'm sure. So I really want Mexicans to know there's going to be a big influx of American people when they wake up and they realize the trick is you can't just move states. I know so many Americans who've moved states because they need to be closer to medical marijuana, and I know so many Americans who've moved states because their kids have to be vaccinated to go to a public school in California, so they've moved to a friendlier state where you can get an exemption. So the trick is you're not going to be able to move states eventually because it's all owned by the same megalopoly. You're going to have to move to a place which has a little bit more rebellious spirit, and that's what I like about Mexico.
Right. You can still live more free than you do in the U.S. I mean, I've lived in the U.S. for so many years, and believe me, the level of slavery that they live under, it's unimaginable. You can't even put a fucking garage sale to sell the stuff that you've already bought and paid for years ago. You can't even put a fucking garage sale without having to go to the fucking city and get a permit from them, paying for a permit to sell your own stuff. I mean, that's how ridiculous this is. I mean, it's
as ridiculous as death tax. It's as ridiculous.
Yeah, there is no freedom. It's so ridiculous.
I know a friend of mine on Facebook today turned left at a no turn left sign, and now she's in jail because she had warrants. They can get anyone they want if they want. It's so scary to me particularly. I don't want to go there unless I have to. I don't really, it's terrible to mistrust your government so much, but that is a two-way thing, like I've been speaking out about my government for so long that you've got to accept sooner or later you're going to have pissed someone off.
And the same thing is happening over here in Mexico, and people are starting not to trust the government. Like I said, they can't see further beyond that. They're still not able to see who really rules. But at least they're sick and tired of all fucking governments that don't do jack shit.
Yeah.
Except
tax everyone.
And fuck everyone over. Yeah. So they're getting tired of this thing. So I think there's definitely a movement growing. This is like any major revolution. When it starts, it doesn't start right away with gunshots. It starts by organizing and getting people together and making a plan and how. That's how things really are born. That's how revolutions are born. And I think that's exactly what's happening here in Mexico. People are getting together, they're starting to organize, and they're starting to get tired of this mafia ruling over them, and
yeah, it's very interesting. It's very interesting, Mexico, because the people actually have a lot of power here. And the government is building and building, but it's not like Australia or America. The government doesn't have that overreach. In the sense that the government has the people's minds in Australia and in America a lot more. You can't pay someone a bribe and get on with your day in Australia or in America. You can't do that. But here, a lot of the people who work in government don't even like government, so therefore they're happy to take a mordida, whatever. But yeah.
Yep.
I think also that there's a lot of people power in Mexico in the sense that there's a lot of people who have experience being criminals with guns. And they're not all bad people, but they all are potentially scary people. And the government knows that it can't just go to someone's house in the jungle in Playa del Carmen and demand tax with a SWAT team like it can in Philadelphia, because that person in Playa del Carmen might have 4 cartel watchmen on the road leading in and have, that these cartel people or people with experience working, doing business. I don't know. It just seems really interesting to me. The people here have a lot of power, and that's why the government is kind of staying in check. And there's a sense of freedom for a lot of us, So
yeah.
I love being an international perpetual traveler. That's what I say I am. I'm of no state. Yeah.
Right.
Pardon?
You're very fortunate.
I'm enjoying my life. When I was in Australia, my dad was like, "What is it about Mexico that just makes you want to stay there so long?" And I'm like, "Freedom." And he was like,
yeah.
And I'm like, "That's it.
Yeah.
Like, I feel free there.
We were.
The police aren't up my butt. Yeah. I don't know what a lot of people are talking about, so I don't get involved with a lot of stuff. I don't read the newspapers or anything. It's a weird thing. I haven't had a letterbox for 7 years, so I don't get any crap from the government wanting to contract with me. I don't drive a car here, which is wonderful. I sit in the backseat of a bus, and if anyone's going to get hurt, it's going to be 70 people before me. And I just love my life. I never deal with the police. I never deal with the state in Australia. That used to drive me insane. Go to the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles or whatever. Used to drive me insane the way they treat you so bad when you're going there to pay them the right to drive your car on the road. So then I learned about... Well, I learned about I'll never have a license again as long as I live. I don't think wherever I live in the world I'll drive without a license, because I don't want to contract with any state, and I don't feel I have to. Anyway, we should keep this kind of short, because I think I have a 1 hour limit on my YouTube and I don't want to edit too much out. But we can talk again sometime soon. I'd love to talk anytime.
It'd be a pleasure.
Alava,
anytime.
Before we go, I just want you to let me know any channels or any way that people can connect with you if they want to talk to you, or if you want to give that out, or anything you want to say before we shut out.
I don't have any channels. I don't have any videos. I don't have any just my Facebook, which I contacted you throughout. I don't have any videos or anything. What I would like to say is, I don't know who's actually going to be watching this video. I think someone all over the world is going to watch this video. We are all one. We're all just one big community. We are waking up, and we're not taking any steps back. We're moving forward. Some of us are able to do a bit more than others, but that does not mean that what you're doing is not important or it's not having an impact. It all is. Even if you just talk to one person and that person is able to wake up and break the conditioning and realize that they've been living a lie all their lives, you've already you've already done so much if you're able to do that. So just for people not to ever feel that whatever they can do is meaningless. No, on the contrary, it's so full of meaning and so important for them to do that and to continue doing them as long as their lives allow them to. And that's all I have to say. I mean, we're all together in this, and I heard it from one person. He says, like, we're all on the list, folks. There's no way back. I mean, the powers that be, the government, the ruling class, they might not know about me personally because I'm just, little me here, but they know this is a movement and it's growing, and it's not a movement, it's consciousness.
It's over. You're right. You're so right. It's consciousness.
Yeah.
And
it's consciousness.
It's rising.
People are becoming conscious.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are becoming conscious, and they're not taking it into the bag. We're just not taking it anymore. We realize that we don't need any ruling class. We are able to. We're fine just looking after ourselves and cooperating with one another. We don't need ruling class. We don't need tax. The word tax in Spanish, it's called impuesto, which means it's imposed on you.
Yeah.
You don't want to fucking pay. You don't want to pay it, but it's imposed on you.
Yeah.
So we are tired of that shit, We're
All
not
the stuff
that.
that's imposed on us, all of the brainwashing, conditioning that so many refuse could have happened to them. Yeah, you're so right.
So, yeah, we're tired of that. We're not taking that anymore, and we're moving forward, and we're not afraid. We're not afraid. That's the key here. For people to be afraid.
You're so right. Fear is every part, the base of the control.
Yeah, we're not afraid. We're not afraid.
Hey, man, thank you so much, Oliver, for standing up and for being a man in this modern world, standing up for truth, willing to be ridiculed and subjected to boring people's invectives. But, yeah, thank you for being my first Mexican flat earther who speaks perfect fucking English. I'm gonna put this into Spanish and get you to check it for me, and then we'll put it up in Spanish as well. So thanks so much. Let's talk again soon.
Anytime you wish. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been awesome, man. All right, have a very good night and speak soon.
All right, you too. You take care.
Ciao.